Moving on to probably the biggest surprise movie of the year, which I'm really pissed I didn't go see this. I told you guys when I was in Texas, I had the opportunity to see the Iron Claw early, a week early, and then we had a work dinner that night. So I opted to go to the work dinner, meet and greet with people, and just get to know them a little bit better. Should have gone and seen this, but a work dinner you need to go to kind of thing. But Tyler went and saw the Iron Claw, the true story of the inseparable Van Erich brothers or Irick brothers who make history in an intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. Through tragedy and triumph under the shadow of their domineering father and coach, the brothers seek larger than life immortality on the biggest stage in sports. Tyler, give us your quick thoughts, but if I may ask, maybe we all review this next week, because I don't know if there's a whole lot of releases in the next week. Maybe if we can get to the theater, I'd really like to see.
I'm going to keep it super high level, not even getting close to spoilers, because we release the ReelTok nominations next week. I would love if one or two of you were able to see it before then, and obviously the UK, we're not going to see it for a while. But again, if we aren't able to see it, we aren't able to nominate it in the ReelTok Awards, then again, that kind of plays to what I was saying before we click record, where it's like if you're releasing a movie that's late and not going to give it internationally, the Oscars are very Western biased. We're an international pod. We need the UK releases to keep up with stuff. We want to get them proper nominations. So going to keep it super high level, because not only you guys, I want everyone listening to go see it, because it's my number 2 movie of the year now. It's right behind Oppenheimer. It's fantastic. And again, Zac Efron absolutely deserves to be an Oscar nominee for Best Actor for his performance in this. Well, that's the thing. Like I was saying before we record the pod, I think this just is too late in the year. Like everyone's already kind of locked in their nominees, their voting ballots, all that. And I this more than just him, like supporting actor Holt McCallany as the father absolutely deserves it. Jeremy Allen White's great. Everyone in the cast is great, but Holt McCallany as the father specifically. Fritz von Erich, he deserves to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Zac Efron, Best Actor, because the movie mostly focuses around Zac Efron's character. But it's just a devastating movie. Just people on a quest for greatness at their father's behest, who was a professional wrestler that never reached the World Heavyweight Championship level. So his kind of life's mission then was to breed his sons to make them do what he was never able to do. And this whole movie is kind of about the sons trying to carry on that legacy. It's a super sad story, but I was looking up stuff on Wikipedia after, because I'm not familiar with the Von Erichs. It's a story that I know a lot of people in professional wrestling are very familiar with, but the real life story is even worse. Like the movie itself is so unbelievable to where, like, if it wasn't a true story, it'd be like, that's just like too much. Like it wouldn't actually be that way. And then you look up what actually happened, even worse. And it's just crazy, because like the director of the movie is like, yeah, we wanted to add it all in, but like at some point you just have to tell a story. And it just,
I haven't looked it up yet. I don't know.
I went in so blind, and I was so worried I was going to get spoiled, because
I know the general thing that happens, but I don't know.
I don't know a thing about.
I'm going to say thumbs up to the wrestling community, because I feel like a lot of different communities, when they're finally getting movies made, like whether it's like racing or anything like that, wrestling community has been super positive about this movie in terms of like none of them have been spoiling. Like, they all know the Von Erich story. Like if you're a wrestling fan, like everyone knows what happens. But I didn't see any, and I follow a lot. There's a lot of people on movie Twitter, like like Alex, Evan. There's a lot of people that are big wrestling fans. No one was really talking about the Von Erichs, like spoiling anything. Like everyone's super open to this movie coming out and everyone experiencing it for the first time. So shout out to the wrestling community for not spoiling anything and allowing people to experience this blindly. But man, these actors were just great together. I think Zac Efron, I remember when I watched whatever that TV show is, I can't remember what it's called, where him and that guy kind of go around the world. Down to Earth. Oh, okay. Down to Earth with Zac Efron, where he has 2 seasons of him kind of going around the world. And I remember there was one scene in it where he was saying, like, at this point in his life in Hollywood, he wants to be making like good movies and doesn't really want to just sign up for anything. And I remember being like pissed off when this came out, because like after that season 1 came out, there was a couple movies he had, like The Greatest Beer Run Ever and some other stupid movies that are just stinkers. I'm like, oh damn, he was just really for show, for like the documentary, trying to sound super deep and moving. I'd be like, yeah, I want to do only good projects, but this is like far and away his most dramatic, most range of a project he's ever shown. Great choice for him to be in this as Kevin Von Erich, the oldest of the family, quote unquote. But Jeremy Allen White's great too. Clearly one of the biggest actors, kind of not up and coming. He's kind of been there with Shameless and now The Bear, but he's still not, your mother and father is not going to know Jeremy Allen White. And then Harris Dickinson is probably the least known of the main 3, but he's was great.
He's
And
in Kingsman and
yeah, King's. Well, he was in The King's Man.
The King's Man, sorry,
the least watched one, and then
one that teases.
It's on tip of my tongue. The Ruben Östlund film from last year.
Triangle of Sadness. And he's in Scrapper this year and was great. So he's starting to get his flowers. He's in that TV show on FX now with Emma Corrin. But so he's getting up there, but he deserves all the flowers in the world too. And I think the editing in this is incredible. There's some crossfades that are just so immaculate, so heartbreaking. And the cinematography and editing is great. Like I said, there'd be a couple acting nominations that should be like, if this movie came out in October, November, I think it'd be shoo-in to get at least one actor or Zac Efron would be the best actor nominee. And then there's a couple people that could have maybe snuck in for supporting actor, Holt McCallany or Jeremy Allen White. And then the mother too, Maura Tierney. She's in the movie for like 10 minutes. Like she's very far and few between, but like in terms of like emotion per minute of the movie she's in, every time she's on screen, it's so impactful. So she does incredible as well. I think the main issue here is the runtime. Like I said, the real life story is even more heartbreaking. There's a lot more they could have went into. How long is it?
It's just over 2 hours. I think this could have been a 3-hour movie because there's a lot of stuff that feels a little rushed in this. And also, I feel like we never really got a good sense of how big of superstars they were in the wrestling community, because these were like legends. Like they were all the family was inducted in the Hall of Fame. They were in the 90s, 80s. They were like the biggest name in worldwide wrestling, sports, entertainment. And I never really felt like that gravity. We never really felt like they were the biggest superstars in the world. It always kind of felt like they had their own thing going on in Dallas. And it was like the big superstars like Ric Flair's in this movie would go down and like wrestle them as like a volunteer service, be like, oh, I guess I'll go do this, like, you know, this smaller gig, when really they were superstars. But big like Leonardo DiCaprio, like snapping at the TV meme, because I lived in downtown Dallas for a couple of years. So like this takes place in downtown Dallas. They're from Denton, Texas. So every time there's like downtown shots of like places I'd recognize, I'm like, hey, I know that place. That's fun. Yeah. But yeah, great film. Incredible, heartbreaking. I wish it was longer. There's just so much, like, it's one of those that like watch it going blind, digest what it gives you, then read the Wikipedia page and be like, oh my God, you're kidding me. Like this, it's just not real. Like, and that's the thing with biopics. And that's why I get so frustrated when biopics play things safe, is because like Cam kind of said about Leonard Bernstein and Maestro, if you're going to make a biopic about someone, they're probably an extraordinary person or has an incredible story, or there's something about them that makes them worthy of making a movie. So already the screenplay gets an easy road, because they already have an incredible real life basis to base something off of. So when you play it safe, it's frustrating because you're not creating the story up in your head. It's kind of what has been laid out in life. But the way they just had incredible editing and visuals, and the acting is so heartbreaking. And there's one final swing that I'll talk about with you guys next week that I don't know if it completely worked for me. I'll sit on it a bit. But then the final scene, which people have alluded to on Twitter, being like Zac Efron's Oscar clip, like it's just so good. And it's just a great movie, man. I can't recommend enough for more people to go see it. I will say it's a bummer of a movie, man. Like it's pouring rain in Arizona yesterday. So it's one of the, like, I watched it, drove home in the rain. I like took a nap. I was just like depressed. It was gloomy out. And I was like, I just need to just log off from the world for a couple hours here. Let's take a little snooze here. It's a bummer movie, but
this movie has become like my most anticipated movie after the fact, though. Like I wouldn't have thought of it earlier in the year. And you see those first pictures of like them in the short shorts hanging out, Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson. Like you see those pictures, like, yeah, it was probably interesting or possibly going to be good. And I think Zac Efron's been fine in a couple things. I think he was fine in Extremely Evil, Incredibly Vile, Shocking, Gross movie, whatever that title was. Yeah, whatever that movie was. I think he was fine in it. But just shout out Zac Efron though, because when he got his Hall of Walk of Fame star. He was just talking about High School Musical and how he still sings the songs in the showers. Shout out him. Way cooler to be pro like whatever teen show you got in on versus Jacob Elordi, who's like, I hate the Kissing Booth movies. Fuck you, Jacob Elordi. They're not good movies, but hey, it's where you started, man. And it's how you're so big now. Yeah, so just shout out Zac Efron. Way cooler to be like, yeah, I still sing High School Musical songs in the shower every day. Awesome.
Agreed.
What,
yeah.
She says High School Musical's good and Kissing Booth is trash.
That is a fair point, to be honest. But
yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, like if we live in a society, Zac Efron's Oscar nominated, like you'll see his performance, and then it's just a different level than like what Bradley Cooper did. Because the reason I compare them is not one, we just talked about Bradley Cooper, but two, they're both biopics. Whereas Maestro was more like Oscar baity. I don't really love that term, but whereas the Iron Claw, like a lot of people said, like it became most anticipated out of nowhere. This had a terrible release plan if they were trying to bait for Oscars. Like they clearly like just made this movie out of pure intentions, and it came out at a time where it's not going to be the best for awards, but I would love to see some nominations. And it just takes some of the best young adult. I know like in real age life, like Jeremy Allen White, Zac Efron, and Harris Dickinson are a lot older than like the characters they portray are normally like mid to late 20s. But I'll say like in terms of like young adult, quote unquote, like I know they've been in the industry a long time. They're great. And having them all together in a movie, fantastic. And everyone supporting is incredible. Can't recommend this movie enough. Devastating. I'm going to be excited to rewatch. But yeah, there's a big winner from A24 here. And I think it managed to do both justice to the professional wrestling community while also making a palatable film for people to enjoy. I know I've seen a lot of professional wrestling people be like disappointed that it wasn't like the full true story, but I think it's just one of those things. Like if you're not used to biopics and you're just a wrestling fan that's just getting into like watching movies because you want to see the Von Erich story, makes sense. But we all know like every single biopic ever made is going to be mostly half truths. Like it's not going to go into everything. So at the end of the day, they have to make a movie, and 2 hours is the runtime they got to tell a whole story of an entire family. Kind of tough.
If it were 3 hours, I'd be shocked if it were as big as it's getting. You know, that's the unfortunate truth of it. Is like I can convince Emma to go see a 2-hour movie. It's impossible. She wanted to see Killers of the Flower Moon. She was like, "Hey, you want to go see Killers of the Flower Moon this week?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah, it's 3 hours." And she's like, "Oh, never mind." Yeah. Just like immediately, we're not doing that.
But yeah, this just is like the perfect storm to be a successful movie, though. So I hope it takes off because you have wrestling fans that are going to love it. It's an A24 film starring people we grew up with, like, you know, Zac Efron, where it's like also big time shows like Shameless and The Bear for Jeremy Allen White. So people like our age are going to be really wanting to see it for that. Plus the A24 branding is undeniable, whether you like it or not. And then for older people, like there's a story that happened in the 80s and the 90s. Wrestling, you know, there's still a huge industry, but it was like an insane different world back then where it was like everything. Like it was like probably as big as like, you know, UFC is today or whatever. Probably way bigger. Never mind. UFC is still kind of like niche-ish, but yeah, so I think it's just like all age groups are going to love this. Like it's at the same time, people our age, but also kind of like a dad movie because it is wrestling and people they probably grew up with knowing. So yeah, can't say enough good things. I'll leave it there. 4.5 stars for me, second of the year. Fantastic movie. Huge surprise. Like I said, I knew I was going to like it just because there was really not a single negative reaction going into it, but didn't think I was going to like it this much. Excited to hear you guys' thoughts if we talk it next week or whenever we go over it.